Welcome back, everyone. I have Noelle Kustas on the podcast today, and she is just a beam of light. She brings joy. She is radiance embodied, and it's not from this squeaky, shiny, happy, easy, light life. It came from, we'll get into it, but let me introduce her before our conversation today. Noelle is a women's empowerment mentor and the founder of Rise to Shine Co. She helps midlife mamas rediscover their purpose, reclaim confidence, and embrace their next chapter. Through her Rise to Shine podcast, which I got to go on last month, that was so fun, and Glow Up School, Noelle empowers women to live with joy, step into their power, and create a life they love. Noelle, welcome to the podcast.
Aw, thank you. I'm so excited to be here today.
I'm so excited too. It feels very serendipitous how we met. When I look back, and those who have followed the podcast know, a big turning point for me was I was set in a previous career, not even doing anything close to what I'm doing now. And what helped me jump ship was actually partly a message from you, which you were a stranger almost 4 years ago. And I remember we connected through that $33 masterclass that Kelly Brock put on. And your story resonated with me because you had this career of teaching and you're planning on retiring there. And I remember you jumped ship to follow your heart and your intuition. And I was like, oh my God, can I do that? And so I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Oh,
That
I
I
love
believe
that.
positioned you in my life at that time to be one of the voices that I needed to give me the guts to follow my gut.
I love that because we just never know. We never know who's watching, who's listening, and whose lives we can touch or be touched by others. So I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think a really common background tape that's running in so many women's heads is I'm running out of time
Mm,
or I'm too late for fill in the blank. So maybe it's in their business where they're like, I should be here by now and I'm only right here. And they're looking around and seeing other people at different levels. Maybe it's their relationship where they're like, oh my God, I am either going through a separation, a divorce, am I going to be alone forever? Or they're in a relationship that may not be exactly where they want it to be. And just this fear of life is passing by. Are we ever going to get to a place where it's actually enjoyable and feels like I can let my hair down? So every area of life, this illusion of us running out of time can actually give us the exact opposite of what we're hoping for, which is presence and being able to be in the moment and usher in the vision that I believe God has put on all of our hearts.
so
If
good.
we could start with your career change and just go from there, can you tell us a little
Yeah.
bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So I always say with my story, I kind of have two big parts to it because I did go through a major relationship change, marriage change, and then also a change in career. And so I always say that my story is a lot about rising, rebuilding, and rediscovering who I am. And if you would have told me that back when I was 19 years old, I would have never believed that because I literally had the vision of my entire life planned. I knew I wanted to be a teacher when I was very young. I had the fairy tale idea of I'm going to get married and I'm going to have kids and I'm going to do all the things. And so my life was very planned out in my mind. Fast forward today at 51 years old, and I go, whoa, that turned out very differently than what I had anticipated. I was married for 19 years in a relationship. I had met him my freshman year in college. The marriage from the outside looked like everything was fine. Behind the scenes, it was absolutely not. I stayed far longer than I ever could have imagined because it became a very abusive relationship. And part of this in staying in things came from a place of not wanting people to think that I was weak, not wanting to, have people believe that anything was going to be different than what, again, was in my mind of the happy family, the great career. And I believed in all of the loyalty and faith and love and all of the things. And I obviously wanted to keep my family together. At the time, I was a teacher. I was a leader in my community. Honestly, everything was unraveling, but I was keeping it very silent. Fast forward 2 kids later, 19 years later, on a Mother's Day, things escalated in a really traumatic way. And that forced me to flee with the kids. And that was the first massive pivot for me. I was in my late 30s. From there, I really had to begin this very long painful, messy, but very powerful journey of healing. And I navigated single motherhood. I was still in the classroom teaching, and thank God for that. I feel like my career, some of that was just that foundational space that I needed, my friends, what I knew best how to do. And it was kind of my escape, really. And so I was going through a lot of deep inner work and had to unlearn a lot of beliefs that I had. And that is when I, years later, ended up finding my now husband. And we were together. And what ended up happening there is we went through the pandemic. And once we had gone through this pandemic, I was already starting to feel this nudge of something wasn't aligning. I couldn't figure out what it was. So in my teaching career, I had been at the same school for 17 years. So I decided, okay, maybe I just need to teach a different grade. I need to go to a new school, a new perspective. So I changed schools, started teaching middle school. I loved it. Pandemic hits about 2 years into that, and I just started to unravel again. I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? All the things. My husband one day looked at me as I was sitting on the porch over coffee on a Sunday. Every Sunday I would cry over coffee. This was my thing, getting ready for the new week to go back to school. And my husband finally looked at me and said, you can continue to do this every Sunday and to be in tears constantly, or you can make a change and you can do something different. I was like, what? I can't do anything different. Are you kidding me? Like it just didn't even, it was never on my radar, didn't even occur to me. That was about 3.5 years ago. And I ended up pivoting. I jumped ship, took this huge leap of faith, left my career of teaching. And at the time, I only had a little side gig of a jewelry business. And when you mentioned taking Kelly's class, thank goodness, I didn't even know online stuff existed to help women, honest to God. And I came across our mutual friend, Kelly, who literally changed my world and perspective. I took another course from her to get certified as a coach, and I was really doing it to just grow in leadership in my little side hustle because I didn't know what I was going to do. It led to all of this, and now here I am with Rise to Shine Co. and my school, and it was literally just another massive pivot. So here we are.
So powerful. I mean, everything you just shared, that's a lot of resonant stuff that those listening have been through. Major life changes, big T trauma. I mean, you mentioned abuse, divorce, the pandemic, which we
Mhm.
can relate to, career transition, parenting. And I know that just scratches the surface of what you've
Mhm.
been through, but I thought it was really powerful that word you chose, the unraveling. I've had a recent unraveling myself. These past 6 months have felt like that. And I got to this point of feeling undone and on the other side, and oh my God. And what's coming up for me to say about that word unraveling is it feels like death when it's happening.
Mhm.
Feels terrifying, but it's actually such a gift and eventually a relief because when we're all raveled up, we are so wound up and we're
Oh.
carrying so much and our body is carrying so much. And so I'm curious
Mhm.
what that felt like, the unraveling process in your body and your nervous system,
Mhm.
if you can remember.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, that was the hardest part. And, it's that place of not even recognizing yourself anymore and going, okay, what is happening? Who's taken over my body? Because there's this intensity that happens and you just learn how to function in your trauma. I had wrapped my identity in being one of those who would always stay, who fixed everything. It was like a death because I was going, gosh, I if I lose this identity, if I lose this person that I've always been able to know how to function in, what does this raw person look like? And what does she sound like? And are people going to resonate with her? It's almost like you go through this weird depression. I really had to get quiet for a while. I wanted to just isolate, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
because it was like I couldn't even understand myself. And I realized that it came down to this self-worth. That was kind of the long game. And it was slowly starting to see myself of who I was and that it was okay that I wasn't perfect. And interestingly enough, When I went through that part, I also ended up recognizing literal physical pain in my body that
Hmm.
I did not notice before. It was to the point where my knuckles, even just touching my pinky finger, I remember telling my doctor, like, I can barely touch my pinky finger knuckle and it hurts and it's
Wow.
sore. So that was interesting because I was like, why did I not feel that pain before? Like,
Yeah.
where is this coming from? I would have thought that that would have happened when I was going through the massive crisis modes, but it was actually when I was doing the work of the healing part and the unraveling
Yeah.
part that that's when the pain actually showed up in my body.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense actually, because in the survival mode, you most go into dissociation to some extent, just survival
Hmm.
mode of we got to get through this. If we were to feel all of this right now, it would be so overwhelming for our nervous system.
Yeah,
It would be way outside of our
so
capacity.
true.
So it is the wisdom of your body kind of waiting until we get to a safer landing place. Like, okay, now we're resting and healing, and we're able to tap back into the body and notice, shit, my knuckles are hurting.
Yeah.
Maybe they were hurt before. It always makes me think of the girl Bethany Hamilton who got bit by a shark and her
Yeah.
arm got taken off and she couldn't
Mhm.
feel it in the moment. She didn't cry out in pain. She wasn't writhing in discomfort. It's the wisdom of her body shutting off sensation so that she can
Hmm.
get through this life-threatening stuff. So did a lot of powerful stuff. One is you just learn how to function in your trauma. And I can
Yeah.
imagine everyone listening to this podcast being like, girl, yes, like raising our hands to that. And I think a lot of us can relate to the feeling like a frog in boiling water, where we have been in
Mm.
environments that have been either traumatic or way too stressful for the way that our nervous system was wired, and yet we just get used to it. And
Yeah.
the beauty of our body is it does adapt, right? So, to keep
Hmm.
us alive. And
Yeah.
so a lot of us slowly kind of unnoticingly get to this place of, oh my God, how am I holding this much? And how is this my normal?
Yeah.
When I think of the way we are created to be as humans, the
Mhm.
modern day we live in and the pace we're going, like this is nothing close to normal. Our body does remember, even if we're not dealing with it in the moment. I love what you also said about curiosity. I'm going to link another episode in these show notes that I did a while ago called Curiosity Cures the Client. And this is
Mm.
actually the first place I start with women who come into the Root to Rise program. I tell them
Yeah.
before anything, before we get to moving trauma out of the body, deepening your connection with your intuition, intimacy, communication, any of that, we
Yeah.
need to learn how to dissolve shame. Women come through the doors very wound up, holding it together. And a way to start unraveling just a little bit, even if it's just a string, is inviting curiosity and
Yeah.
being able to be this observer of what's happening versus so attached and tight and clutching and controlling. You said one of the big shifts in your transformation was being more curious. I also want to name when you said, I can't do something different right now, when it was suggested just to change careers. That makes a lot of sense too when you're in the thick of it, when there's a lot of uncertainty. Anything new is going to feel like a total threat to your system. Now, I know you're in a relationship that is healthy, connected, and safe, and communication and everything looks so different from before. And I noticed this just interesting trend, honestly, no matter the age. I know you work with midlife women, but women my age, like in our 30s, who are either single or separated, going through a divorce. There's this fear of, oh my God, that was my one shot, and now my chances of getting picked up and falling in love with a guy that is um, like a good guy, the chances are
Mhm.
lower. So, can you just speak to the woman who's afraid that she either won't ever get to experience the true desire of her heart when it comes to relationship, or just the woman
Yeah.
who is alone right now and really afraid of living the rest of her life without a partner?
Oh gosh, I love this. I literally have the chills as you're talking about it because that was me. When you're going through a separation or you're going through a divorce, it's not like you're just magically in a place of, all right, it's done and we're good and we can move on with life. There's still a lot that's going on. And whether it be court or therapy, all the things. I remember vowing to myself that I do need to relearn who I am, or even just discover who I am as an adult, because I had been in that marriage since I was 19 and I was in my late 30s. And so I vowed to, for the first year, I was just going to be in mom mode, kind of that mama bear, hunker down, work on me, help my kids get through what they had just been through. So I really did take that time, but I do remember, and this is what is so funny, and I wish I had this list in front of me right now, but I remember a girlfriend telling me, she said, I want you to just write down all of the traits, all of the characteristics that you would want in a relationship, in your future husband. And I was like, oh my gosh. And she said, no, I really want you to think about this, because this is going to also be part of your healing, because you're never going to reach that point of, and I don't remember, she was more, it wasn't about manifesting, or it wasn't really that conversation. It was more of who I needed to be in order to draw in that energy. I remember writing this list, and it probably took me months. I would just add to it. I was really thinking about my kids, obviously wanting to be in a relationship that was something that would be valuable to them, and that they would see a good man, a good relationship, a healthy marriage. I mean, I really was praying about that. But I listed all these things, and then fast forward, because I thought, where am I going to meet a man? Like, how does this even happen? And I thought, well, it's going to be another divorced guy on the soccer field or something, I guess. And so I went online several times, and I will say I deleted it several times because I was terrified. Ultimately, ended up meeting my husband online, and I will tell you that that list, with the exception of one thing, Becky, one thing, he was everything, every single thing on
What
the
was
list.
the one thing?
That he was going to be over 6 feet tall, and he's only 5'10".
Only 5'10". Yeah, it's okay. Maybe he'll still grow.
And it was funny because, I mean, I gave him this list later on. I think it was on our Valentine's Day, in a card. I feel like people would never believe me if I show them this list of, like, no, I am serious. He is down to being a musician, and even down to the little tiny things. He's all of it.
Crazy.
It was
Crazy.
crazy. But I say all of that to say, he's such a good guy. And there's so many amazing humans out there. And I think we get jaded. We get in this place of, we just haven't experienced it. And one of the things that I really was praying for is, I could never understand when people would say, I'm married to my best friend. I was like, what? I don't even get that, because we didn't even like being around each other. And I'm like with my best friend. We spend so much time together. And now I can truly go, that's what that means. But I think too, here's the gift of being older, um, and being in that space. Your wisdom and your lens and your perspective are so different
Yeah.
than when you are younger. And not to say that those relationships can't bloom and flourish and be wonderful, but you do grow together, and you do have to go through maybe some of those challenges, because you're literally growing up together. Whereas when you meet someone in your 40s or late 30s, 50s, whatever, you have had so much more life experience that I really do believe that you know what you want, and you don't waste time on all of the things that you might have wasted time on before, because it's so much easier to go, no, been there, done that. You have that confidence and that wherewithal in you to go, I am worth more than that. So you're like, I'm not going to waste 5 years in a relationship with someone that's not compatible. So that's kind of the beauty of it, is to shift your lens a little bit and go, hey, I've got way more wisdom and life experience than I had before.
I hope it deposits so much hope to anybody who can relate to being in that spot right now, because what I'm hearing you saying is, oh girl, that was just the warm up. And you use the word jaded, which I think if anyone has reason to be jaded, it's you, with how much you have gone through, and we just skimmed the surface. But here you are on the other side of it, and it's like, no, I decided, instead of being a victim to all of that and letting those stories define me as somebody who attracts bad relationships, or somebody who's in a job that feels expired, or somebody who fill in the blank, you You allowed the unraveling, even if you were fighting the process, which we all do at first, but you
Yes.
eventually allowed it so that you could see what was underneath and finding this immense clarity on who am I, and look what it led to. And I love how practical that was, the little exercise you did of writing down all the things. It
Mhm.
reminds me of what we did this week in my client community where we wrote our eulogies. I know that might sound morbid, but it just helped everybody get a really clear lens on what do I actually want to be remembered for.
Yes.
If I could imagine my kids speaking about the life that I lived, what was I known for? How did I spend my time? What were my values? What impact did I leave? And so it really helps take us out of our ego and into this heart space of this is really what matters to me. And then
Yeah.
we reverse engineered that eulogy to a day in the life of us when we're 70. So a
Love.
lot of us use ChatGPT to help with that. We like in the eulogy and then said, can you write a short little story paragraph of what does a day in my life at 70 look like based off this eulogy? I
Oh,
did
so
this
good.
months ago and I recorded my voice saying it, and it's actually one of the most consistent morning practices that I have. I'm not a good, consistent, disciplined morning practice girl, but
Hmm.
what I have been the most consistent in, I think, is this is playing my voice, reading my life at age 70. And it's crazy. I was telling my clients how I get very detailed in this on like what kind of relationship I see myself in at 70. I wake up and I turn over and I kiss his cheek to start the day with tenderness. And we start the day with coffee and
Yeah.
conversations about nothing from the deeply philosophical in the kitchen and just little details like that. I'm living it out. And what I noticed it
Love that.
did is it started to ripple effect and shift how I was showing up now in my marriage. And I
Yeah.
started doing that. I was like, you know what? Why not start now? I started turning over and kissing my husband with a gentle little kiss in the morning to start
Exactly.
my day with tenderness. And actually, when I started this, I think I was mad at him. We were in a fight that week, and I was like, you know what, though? This is who I want to be, and this is what I'm going to attract. And I just started doing the things, and it brought in this different reality, which is what I heard in your story.
I love that you're saying this because first, what I will say, you have to forgive yourself and you have to come to a place of forgiveness. And like they always say, forgiveness isn't for them, it's for you. But once I was able to really truly forgive my former husband and forgive myself for my part in it and what I had gone through and what I felt like I had put my kids through, once I was able to get through that, because here was my biggest fear, is that a common thing that people say or you hear it is people end up in the same patterns, that they are going to end up with the same kind of guy and all of those things. And I am here to say that that does not have to be your truth. And again, it comes from doing some of that work to really see who you are and to be that person. And what I love then of what you just talked about is exactly that is, like we talk about, and I heard this, I had heard something similar to this a long time ago about, showing up as her. And even if you have something in your mind in your relationship of what it would look like when you're 70, start doing those things now. I love that because this is what we do in my practice as well, as we start talking about, okay, rather than it being something so far off, what can you do today? What does that girl look like? What does that woman look like? What does she act like? Who does she act like? What does she wear? What does she say? What are the words that come out of her mouth? Like all of those things. And then you start putting it into practice in your present day. And that is where you start to see not only how it changes you, but how it changes your partner and how it changes your relationships and how you show up in the world. Exactly what you're saying is how important that is in your walk as you are getting older and you're going through your pivots because it just carries such truth.
I love that so much. And I think that's a perfect segue. Yeah, tell us about your ideal
Yes.
client, what you have to offer her.
I love working with all women, but I really work with a lot of midlife moms. And for me, I say, and I don't say this to freak people out, but I'm like, midlife is really more of 35 and up. And the reason why I say that is because not that that's technically your midlife, but it's when a lot of change starts to happen in women. So whether it be your kids start getting older and your role starts to change as a mom and as a wife, or and you start going through hormonal changes again. And it's all those fun things that start to happen sometimes in your late 30s. But I love working with midlife moms. I feel like they are my people, just being able to resonate. If you're younger, join us. If you're not a mom, that's okay too. Just know that you'll probably hear a lot of mom talk.
I love that. I love being around women who are in their 40s and 50s. And my core friend group, actually, it's four of us. We have a woman in every decade. We've got my friend Courtney, who's the youngest. She just turned 30. I'm in my mid 30s. We've got Erin, who's 40, Julie, who's 15. It's just like the collection of wisdom from the different
It's so
generations
true.
and the funny ways we laugh at each other for things that we don't understand, like jokes from our own generation. It's just
Yes,
it's a rich melting pot. So I love that
I
you
love it too.
group like this. And Noelle, we always end with a fun rapid fire game, but
Oh.
to ask if you have anything else coming through that you feel led to share.
Well, yeah, well, just definitely, if you would like to connect, and I know you'll probably have stuff like this in your show notes, but I am on Instagram, joyful_Noelle. That's where I'm hanging out the most. And you get to see a lot of the behind the scenes of my life and the healing journey. And then, of course, Rise to Shine Co. And that's the number two. Rise2shine.co is where you would find my podcast of what I'm doing there with the Rise to Shine podcast. I keep everything pretty much in that rise and shine space, but we do have the Glow Up School as well, which is a lot of fun. And I have a book that will be coming out late summer, and it's a collaborative book, but I really share my story in depth and I just really want to offer hope for women who are ready to just turn their pain into purpose. And so those are some fun ways to connect.
You're amazing, Noelle. I'm so glad we connected. And are you ready for a little
I'm
rapid
right.
fire?
I hope so.
So, easy questions. Question
Okay.
number one, what's your number one book recommendation, either for fun or life-changing?
Ooh, oh, gosh, so many books. I'm such a book girl. But I would say one that really, really changed me is Claim Your Power by Mastin Kipp. And I picked it up during a season when I had already left my marriage and was doing the surface level work, but still kind of felt like something was missing. And this book helped me to really just dig in. And it connected my trauma to my patterns. And that's when I really kind of started to learn about the nervous system too. So anyways, that was a good one for me.
I love that. That one hasn't been mentioned on this show. So good. Question number two, what's your guilty pleasure?
I may have a few. Can I say lately, I almost feel like I have to whisper because my husband's in the other room. My guilty pleasure, honestly, is warm sourdough bread that I'm not baking. So I'm not doing the whole, I know everybody's into the baking, but I'm afraid to do that, quite honestly, because this is a guilty pleasure, is sourdough bread with real butter and a sprinkle of flaky salt. This is, I know
Ooh,
it's been bad. I've been trying to be so good with what I'm putting in my mouth, but every once in a while I'm like, ooh, it's just been
sounds
very bad lately.
amazing. No, sourdough is good for your gut. Go with
That's what
it,
I always say.
girl.
There's a girl on Instagram that's like, and it's gut healthy. And I
It
always hear that
is.
in my mind.
There you go, girl. You enjoy that sourdough.
Yes.
All right. What is the meaning of life? Going deeper now.
Ooh, meaning of life. I think it would have to be about growing with what we go through and to keep showing up with love because I feel like life is becoming who we were always meant to be. And it doesn't have to be about perfection, but really through presence and purpose and finding that joy in those like ordinary moments and how we love. And I really do believe it's about our legacy in that because I feel like we are here for a purpose. So when we're able to allow ourselves to go through what we go through, and that's going to be the legacy that we live, is the example that we showed through love and, just healing all of the things.
I love that. Actually, a part of my eulogy that I wrote was I know I've lived my purpose, and I know that in the end, love was always the point.
Love that.
Good.
We have so much. I
Ew.
want to be in your bestie group.
Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. I'm gonna add you
Okay.
to the group chat. All right, Noelle, last question is what's the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
I know this one. A mentor had said to me once, and we actually touched on it at the beginning, someone out there is praying for you, even if they don't know you yet. And the
Oh,
reason why that became and it still is one of my deepest anchors in life is that it reminds me that even in our loneliest, most painful moments, I wasn't forgotten. And I felt like it helped me to reconnect with my self-worth when I felt unworthy. And it reminded me that I matter and that we all matter and we are here for a reason. And we actually are carrying something that the world needs. We just might not know what that is. So I just feel like that is what has always given me hope, and you don't have to give up on your dreams because someone somewhere is already hoping that you won't.
God, I love that. That's such a beautiful way to end the episode. Noelle, we
Oh,
gotta have you back on. I'll be adding you to the girls group chat shortly.
fabulous.
So much for coming on today. Really, I mean,
Oh,
you're such a pleasure to be around.
thanks so much. It was so much fun. Thank you.